Good evening, everybody.
Oh,
I am calling the meeting together, the first meeting of the Community Code Enforcement Committee. I'm very excited about this committee. This is something that has taken a long time in coming, but I really believe that this will be the most substantial committee that Lakeside has had easily a decade. So you're going to have a very hard task in front of you, but it's something that could really make a big benefit to our community. So, with that, let's go ahead and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I'm going to go ahead and do roll call. First off would be to my far left, and that would be go ahead and state your name. It's present.
Armstrong, present.
Rob Ward, present. Mark Hodgson.
Nikki Wood, present.
Shania Strutton, present.
Dennis Harper, present.
And Cassie Salami, present.
Very good. Excellent. Now, Nikki Harden was having some issues today and was hoping to be able to Zoom in. You're not out there, are you, Nikki?
She's going for it though.
Yeah. Well, she might not be able to make it, but she'll be able to make the next meeting.
There's a way you can get that off,
Do you want me to
just so we don't.
show the speaker only?
No, that's okay. Go ahead and leave it on there.
Okay.
All right, well, good. First off, I'd like to do member introductions. Most of you know each other, but each of us come with a little bit of extra expertise to help this committee. And I won't talk too long, I promise you. I also just really want to thank everybody for being a part of this committee. We barely got 5 members, and it's going to be a tough committee. I was talking to the lawyer today, and he goes, first thing he told me, he goes, Mark, you might have the perfect code in the world and everything like that. He goes, but it means nothing if you don't have a process, if you don't have a way of enforcing it. So he was pressing upon me, you guys really, it's about what happens in this committee, which is really going to make a change. It's a matter of, making sure we don't drop things, making sure we just, don't turn our eyes up to problems, and that we're fair and we educate people. All right, so there's a request here for, oh, never mind, it's further on down after I'm at the picture. So why don't we start over with Dennis? Dennis, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you make a great meal, but.
My name is Dennis Harper. I moved here approximately 2 years ago, and we restored and opened the Dune Rider Cafe, and we love our little town, and I want to try to help out in any way that I can.
Great. Then Shania.
I'm Shania Strutton. We moved here 5 years ago. We vacationed here forever and wanted to move down because we love the town. We still love it. And I would like to do whatever I can to try to improve it and make things better for everybody.
I'm Nikki Wood. I've been a city councilor for about a year now. Since day one, code enforcement was one of my main objectives. So I'm really happy that we've gotten this far.
Great. Well, of course, I'm Mark Rauch, the mayor. like I said, it's been a battle to get here, but not only do we have the code to do it, we have the financial resources to do it. And by the end of the evening, the mayor is not part of the committee and I'll be bowing out, but I have confidence in the people that are on this committee.
I'm Rob Ward. I've been in Lakeside for about 6 years. I too love this little community and would like to see it be a shiny little gem here on the coast.
Elaine?
I'm Elaine Armstrong. We've been here 40 years. It's just a beautiful little town. It's a town our kids grew up in. Our grandkids love coming here. It has everything you would want. We do have to do that. Has been a long road going downhill, so now we have to clean that.
Great, Cassie?
Thank you. I'm Cassie Sarami. We moved to the beautiful city of Lakeside approximately 8 months ago. I have a background in many different things, teaching and politics, so working with children in both of those. But I just really believe in community. And I think that as a community, we all need to work together to make it better for everyone equally. Code enforcement is a necessary evil in order to make sure that, everyone has the same quality of life. And I'm just thankful to and asked to be part of the solution.
Great. And guess what? I see Nikki Harden out there in computer land. Can you hear us, Nikki? You might have to turn off mute.
Okay, hi, I can hear you.
Yay! Well, welcome to the committee.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be part of it. I'm really bummed that circumstances today made it so I can't be there, but I'm happy to be on the committee.
Great. All right, well, so that's introductions. Now, at this point, we're going to have an election of a chair and a vice chair. Like I said, at this point, the mayor drops out of the committee because we want it to be an independent committee of citizens, not just, Mark saying, well, let's do this type of thing. All right, at that point, what I would like to see is first off, let's do nominations for chair. Do I have any nominations from any of the members?
Well, I was thinking you should be a council member.
Doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be, but experience.
Yeah,
That kind of gives the inside track of what's going on in the community, though, I think.
I think so. I think Robert should be the natural.
So you nominate both Rob and Nikki?
No, I mean, you're
Okay.
supposed to do a chair and a vice chair,
Yes,
one at a time.
one at a time, starting with the chair.
Okay.
Do I hear any other
I'll second
nominations?
that nomination.
Any other nomination?
Okay.
Anything else out there in computer land? Nope. Okay, so we have a second nomination. Let's go ahead and put it up to a vote.
Nikki.
So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and everybody in favor, since there's only one nomination on the board, everybody in favor of Rob Ward being committee chair, raise your hand and say aye.
I,
Okay, so I heard aye out there in computer land.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And
So,
Nikki typed I. I can see that Nikki typed I.
Yeah, I did. Hi.
so are there anybody who is a nay? No. So it's unanimous for all members of the committee. And Now it's for nomination of vice chair. Do I hear any nominations?
No second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All against, say no. Okay, it's unanimous. So our chairperson is Rob Ward. Our vice chairperson is Nikki Wood. At this point, I'm going to just say a few words because I love to talk, even when I've got a bad voice. Like I said, it's real important that we get this right. Actually, I really said it earlier, so I'm all set. I will let you guys continue. I will give this to Rob. Comments? I'll just watch and help out as I can.
Thanks, Mark. And as we continue our meeting, just a brief comment about the role of the chair and the vice chair. The chair doesn't have any special opinions, doesn't control the meeting. They just officiate the meeting according to the agenda and Robert's Rules of Order. And then the vice chair would do that if the chair was absent. Our next agenda item is public comment. And we have a public comment form from Mike Armstrong.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Armstrong. I own M. Armstrong Construction. So this is code enforcement. So I want to bring to everybody's attention that one of the addresses that's across from our house is 1710 North Lake Road. Okay. So what I would like to do next is
Could you repeat that address, please?
1710 North Lake Road. I'm gonna walk around. I'm gonna show you what I've been dealing with every night. This happens every night, all day,
Show them slow.
okay? Drug dealing, drug using, theft, people coming and going. Go back to this. This is what they do out in the middle of the road. Every day this happens. Every night this happens.
Yikes.
I'm tired of it.
And you're sure that that's what's happening?
Oh, I know. Let me show you this one.
Sheriff.
His house is right across the street.
So this is, I've been in communication with Sergeant Smith. This is what I send him all the time. See all these? These are on my camera. Communication, drug dealing. People there all night, all hours. All different cars. Over 48 pictures, of different cars and stuff happening every day. So this is what I want to bring to your attention. One last thing. This is what I look out from my window, from the living room. Okay? This is my living room. Now, when I look out there, all I see is a bunch of crap. This has been going on for a couple of years. I would like to see code enforcement start enforcing the code, whatever you guys got to do.
What's the response from the deputy that you've talked to, Ben?
Hands are tied.
Because
Why? They patrol up and down. Every time something happens, I alert him. He apologized. I'm sorry, Mike. I'm sorry. You know, we're doing what we can. This and that. We sent it to the drug force task man. We only got one guy working on the drug task team. This and that. My value of my property, if something would happen to my family and I had to sell, is down. Mike Fox is a neighbor. He tried selling his house. People were gonna buy it, saw the stuff going on next door to him, backed out. They disrespect all the neighbors around there. I've talked to them. We've had conversation. Oh, let's be good neighbors. Let us know when we need to turn the music down and the lights off. That communication has stopped. I don't even want to talk to them anymore. I'm at that point. So hopefully today or with the new committee, we can make something happen. That's what I'm hoping. Because I see this every day, every night, 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. My guys show up to go to work and they're parked halfway on the street. Kids are there.
Do we-
So,
do you-
hopefully this-
street.
What's that?
That sounds like our street.
So I know there's other places in the lakeside, that, you know, that need code enforcement, falling trees, dogs barking, this and that. Yeah, I get it. This is a big problem.
Especially for kids.
I shouldn't have to deal with this on my own. This is a city problem. It needs to be addressed.
Are there any city codes that cover this situation?
Oh, yeah.
Nothing is enforced.
Yeah, that's.
Everything's got to be updated and brought up. So when I approach with a complaint, it gets dealt with. We've already dealt with DEQ. They've already had a fine. My wife's been in contact with them. I got pictures of them dumping their trailer waste in a water table. We have a water table right there. You know, it's ridiculous. So hopefully something will come with this, because every time I come in here, I keep hearing, oh, we could do this, we can do that, and like you're trying to invent the wheel again. Let's just get something done. This is annoying. Thank you.
I'm in pretty good relationships with Sheriff Smith also. Now that there is actually a committee that is working with the city government here, maybe that'll give us a little more pull.
Well, he's out for 2 weeks right now because of Dune Fest, which I understand. So he told me that he's gonna be out of service, but I just want you all to know that this is what's been going on. And it's not on the one weekend or one day, it's every day, all day.
Their house either. It's always fucking town.
No,
What was that?
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong.
Thank you.
Huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is our objectives, which were set out for us when this committee was put together. And we have to have a discussion of how we're going to operationalize those objectives, so that we can have a clear direction forward and not be running in circles and squirrel. So I'd like to just go through them one by one. I've had some ideas about not what we should do, but questions we should be asking. So the first one on the list, the order as given to us, is educating citizens on the existing city ordinances and emphasizing the necessity of compliance. The questions that came to my mind was, first, what type of codes should be primary focus in that education effort? You know, should it be public health and safety, should it be nuisance, land use and zoning, streets and right of ways, other things? Don't have to answer right now. It's something for us to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had some dealings with the downtown area with panhandling, prolonged parking, camping on the streets. You know, like Mike was saying, junk vehicles, dismantling, general multiple homes and RVs on properties that are, you know, in violation. So we'll look into those codes, see what we can, you know, how we can enforce them and what is our power of enforcement? Do we have to go through the sheriff's department? Will we have a way to have people comply other than just putting maybe a tax lien on their property or something that people aren't going to care about? I mean, how do we go about, say we have somebody that's in a violation, we send them the violations. How do we go about enforcing that violation?
Did you have the opportunity to the code enforcement chapter that was in the?
Yeah, I got it kind of late, but yeah, I got it.
So in a nutshell, we've gone through the enforcement process with the hearings officer, which we recently passed an ordinance to have a hearing officer process. The person doesn't come into compliance, then there's fines. If they're not, and the fines accumulate until they come into compliance. If they're not paying the fines, then you place the lien. And if that's not enough to get their attention, you can actually foreclose on the lien, take their property and sell it.
Yeah,
So there's teeth.
yeah, I thought that's why got that idea for the liens. I just didn't catch that other part, but yeah, I'll go over that again.
So, so my first question is, what types of code should be the focus of educating the citizens? The second was, should we be making some attempt for some overarching global information piece, or should we be picking topics for focused communication, you know, over time, or some combination? Because I don't know if you've looked at the codes, but I mean, you could make your education effort. Hey, citizens, here's where on the website you can find the codes. Good luck. So we have to figure out how we're going to communicate it. And should it just be one-way communication where we're telling everybody things? Or should we also put into place a process where people are coming and telling us what they want information on, or how they want information presented to them?
I have a thought on that.
Uh-huh.
Are we talking about preemptive measures for everyone, or are we talking about once we've noticed that there's a problem?
Now, the objective was educating citizens on the existing city ordinances.
Yeah,
and
okay.
emphasizing the necessity of compliance.
So a blank for everyone.
Yeah, so this could be, and you're right, it could be not just telling people, here's what the codes are and you need to follow them, but it could also be, here's how you initiate the code enforcement process, or anything like that.
Okay.
So we need to be collectively figuring out that education piece if we're going to enact that objective. The second one is conducting a comprehensive survey of historical and current citizen complaints to discern optimal strategies for enhancing compliance with city ordinances. Which sounds nice, but the first question that came to my mind was, if I'm going to catalog all those prior citizen complaints, what information do I want to take off of those that's going to be useful moving forward? Because if you're cataloging the past just to say, yep, we haven't done a good job, that's not terribly useful.
I have a thought on that. I think it's be a waste of time and money to go in the past. Let's go forward. We know where the problems are. Let's start with the future, what we have now. I mean, why go in the past? I mean, even we'll see your complaint, your problem, we know the other one. And some of them may have been resolved.
Yeah, I'd say just like the active things that are happening from what Rick has been doing and
You know,
the
now
problems
you-
going on.
And if you do get something, then you could go and look and see if it has priors, but let's go this day forward and see where the problems are.
So as we collectively these days, we might just put that one at the bottom. Right?
Which one?
Looking back to see what's happened in the past.
Makes that one.
I agree.
Unless it's a habitual offense like Mike was talking about. I mean, that's right up, that's right up.
Because if you spend a lot of time looking, and going back, like you said, we archive it, we go back through and stuff, you're gonna see a pattern, but there's still the problem. And I think it's a waste of time.
And I don't know if, how many of you have seen the fee schedule in the recent ordinance, but it's based on, the amount of fine is based on repetition. So if it's a repeat offender, the fines are higher.
Yeah, but you start to think forward.
Yeah.
We're going to educate people to think, how's up today? That gives them time to either take us serious or not.
Where does the money that you were talking about, fines or liens, where does the money that comes from that go?
Goes back into the code enforcement.
So where,
Well, I believe code enforcement is in the general fund.
Mhm.
So, yeah, hopefully you would put that back into the enforcement process.
and back into the, okay, good,
You know, but there's gonna be costs up front. You've got a hearings officer.
right.
You get some administrative work. So the fines repay some of that. The next objective that was given to us was collaborating with municipal staff and council to devise a strategy for augmenting and improving code compliance throughout the city. And so the question that popped into my head is, what work does this committee need to complete prior to starting the collaboration like that? So we're gonna have to figure out what it is we're working with the staff on. The next objective was supporting the city staff in pinpointing properties posing compliance issues. I don't know exactly how we should be doing this, but I don't think that means that committee members are supposed to be roaming the streets of the city looking for violations. But I'm sure we will figure out a way to do that.
I have something on that.
Sure.
How are we gonna do this? Are we gonna be a complaint-driven system like we have in the past, or is it gonna be where if somebody sees it, how are you gonna do it? Are you gonna keep them anonymous, or are you going to have them fill out a form? I mean,
So-
that's what I thought we would be deciding moving forward.
Yeah, I think we do need to decide that, even though it's not clearly under one of these objectives. But, you know, when you get complaints and violations, you have to have some way of prioritizing those. And that's something we have to collectively work out here, is how that's gonna be prioritized.
I would think that you'd also have to have some sort of form, some sort of paper trail, some sort of evidentiary proof. You can't just have somebody come up and say, oh, Mike kicked me in the kneecap. You know, you gotta say, you know, this is what's happening, this is my complaint, this is where it is.
Right, so I don't know if you're familiar with the current complaint form.
Yes.
Yeah, and we might revise it, who knows? But one of the things it asks for is evidence to support the complaint. And sometimes there's evidence and sometimes they're not. When a complaint is followed up on, someone on city staff is supposed to go, look and see, is this true? Is it really happening? And then if it is, whoever your enforcement officer is supposed to start the enforcement process, which starts with a notice to the parties telling them, there's a problem here, you have this much time to clean it up, and if you don't, there's gonna be fines. Then your next notice is, you didn't clean it up, now we're collecting fines. And they also have, that's when they have an opportunity to seek a hearing with the hearings officer.
Who's gonna be appointed as a code enforcement officer?
I do not know.
Nobody can be the code enforcement officer. Except
It's
for the
not
city
us.
manager, yeah.
So it will have to be the city manager or the city manager's designated staff member.
For insurance purposes.
I think it's important that we make it, hopefully we'll make a decision as soon as possible, so we can move forward and not just have meetings on meetings to decide, first of all, how are we going to use a complaint driven form? I mean, whether they have to do their name and stuff, and I wish we had a copy of the current form where everybody could see it. To see what we're looking at, and then tell people to fill them out. We don't have, I understand we have to prioritize and stuff, but some of them could be resolved with just letters. So you don't want to just take one and work on one. We want to, if we get 10 in, then you open up 10 cases and you proceed forward. Because people want to see results.
That's great if you have staff for that. If you don't, you have to pick and choose.
Rob,
Yeah.
Cassie is wanting to say something.
Cassie,
Thank you. I think it's very important that we have some type of form that they fill out like we have now, or, you know, some type of system. The reason is we don't want to be perceived as the code enforcement committee as the town narcs, as the town snitches. You know, we will have a hard time getting people to volunteer to be on this committee after our year is over, if they perceive this as our role. When Mayor Crouch kind of described the role to us for this committee, I felt like he was making it very clear that we're not the town, you know, we're not supposed to go around the town and decide on our own what we don't like and what we do like. This is more about public safety and health. And if folks have something like Mike Armstrong has that's happening right across the street from them, they should come to us, let us know, and then however we decide we're going to follow up on it. Being at the council meetings, I understand that we have the enforcement officer that will be passing some stuff off to. But I just think it's important that we have folks, they're going to complain, they have a valid reason, but they have to take accountability in that complaining as well, to save, you know, document it for everyone, save all of our behinds, if you will. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think the committee is about more accountability and making sure city staff follows through with, and what we can do to support them, instead of we're not the ones out doing the job.
Yeah, I think it's important to first look at the form and then decide if we're going to be anonymous, because in the past, the city has had anonymous, so that they were afraid of retaliation, or people not afraid to put their names on it. Those are the things that I think the fine tuning of our ordinance we have to get down so we can move forward. Because some people say, well, I won't go forward if there's no name on it. Well, then some neighbors are worried about retaliation, so.
the next objective is overseeing the city's initiatives to enhance code compliance and proposing adjustments to the strategy. And my understanding is that oversight, because the committee manages the process, it means that we review the process and the outcome and suggest adjustment. So my suggestion is that whenever the committee recommends an initiative or strategy adjustment process, the committee should also identify what they intend to be the outcome, and also consider, discuss, and recommend some outcome measure to determine if that change we're recommending is actually working. And the last objective is providing monthly reports to the city council regarding the progress of the city's endeavors in advancing code compliance. So at first, this would just be reporting the committee's progress in preparing and putting process into place. Later, this would expand to include progress on actual compliance procedures that are in action. We should be considering what parameters we're going to measure as we look at how code enforcement is succeeding or failing. And you have to be careful that you don't create unintended incentives for staff. Like if you give them a goal of closing out a certain percentage of complaints, then you may get that, but it might not be done the way you would like. And that reporting might also include an assessment of whether there's adequate staffing to complete the code compliance work on the staff. Maybe those were my thoughts about the objectives. Did you have any additional ones? Yeah.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, when we start doing the objectives, maybe we write our committee process on the board, and get that written down for all of us to follow those parameters. And so every meeting, we know what we're doing. Yeah, okay.
I think that's a great idea. But did anybody else on the committee have discussion about the objectives in front of us?
So what are we hoping to accomplish at this meeting? I mean, you have the objectives, but are we going to then start with?
So that's actually our next agenda item is tasks and follow-ups. So we have to collectively decide what we're going to start working on first. And we're going to take paintbrushes out of the bucket so that we can get some work done and then come back.
Should I get up on the whiteboard?
Sure.
Yeah. Is this the chocolate door? I'm looking at that.
Yeah, that's what I've been using.
A box right there, is it chocolate?
Let me go look for it. There's a lot of these.
I can write.
All right, you're gonna have to.
I'd be more than happy to help out.
Wait, you can write it.
I've been writing with it. How do you think I got all that stuff? All that stuff from the board.
All right.
Where's your list?
We're gonna have to put that in
We're
the budget.
gonna make it right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
I can.
you guys are gonna have to correct my spell.
Okay. Okay, how was
It's the top.
committee's process? I don't know.
Okay,
committee processes.
Well, we were at tasks and follow-ups.
But I feel like we need to, we have the objectives and stuff. But kind of, at least the way my brain works, that we need to know what we're talking about, you know, like every meeting. The same kind of parameters, like you were saying. So that's where I was thinking that would come in. Yeah,
What's your number,
well,
what's the number one?
Yeah, we might want to think about prioritizing.
I was just gonna say prioritizing. We've got a whole long list and lots of information about the different ordinances and how they can be, how there can be violations of those ordinances. But those are obviously not gonna be all the same severity. You know, Mike's got a problem where his property is being severely impacted by what's going on. Whereas somebody else maybe, you know, their neighbor does something that irritates them, but it's not really causing any problem. So how do we prioritize the complaints that are turned in as far as which ones need the most and the quickest action on it? What about that? How do we do that?
I have an idea on that. I mean, I have a comment on that if I'm allowed.
yeah, go ahead.
I think that public health and safety needs to be our top priority. I think anything that impacts our citizens' safety, health, their real quality of life, I think that we need to focus on those first. There's barking dogs and there's tall grass and there's other things that we do definitely want to, you know, get to. But in my mind, public health and safety has to be number one.
I agree with that.
So are we talking about what we want to attack first?
I think we've kind of jumped. Because we're now
Sound.
talking about the actual process. Rather than the committee putting the process together, which is fine with me, but
So a bit process up here.
Well, under the process, you could put prioritize as
Okay,
part
we're
of the
doing the
process.
Well, I think if we're starting with the process, the first part of it would to be gathering information from the city manager about the complaints, gather complaints, right?
Yeah.
Or gather
Complaints.
I think.
If you guys said you didn't want to go into the past.
Yeah,
So first let's do, like you started saying, all the ones that we'll be looking at, like public health and safety first. But then over here, then we're saying, now how are we gonna start enforcing it? First thing's gonna be the complaint and then the steps on that.
Yeah.
So there's two separate things we have to do.
Mhm.
So I think you were right in that.
Complaints?
I think it was how to prioritize them first, the health and public health and safety, hallways, nuisance complaints, is that what you're talking about?
we could go off of complaints and how we prioritize the complaint, correct? That's what we're talking about,
Right.
public health and safety would be.
Is why it's fine. So complaints, we're gonna prioritize.
Yeah.
And then are we gonna move this? Right.
Yeah,
So
we can even
go
branch
off
off
again.
that.
Yeah, health and safety should be
Public health and
number
safety.
one.
Well, I think your nuisance you're talking about, it comes down to also quality of life. And that has something to do with this too. Your quality of life is,
Under health and safety, I mean,
but I
Yeah.
mean, for the nuisance, the dog complaints and that kind of stuff.
Oh.
But that is, to some people, it's just as, not as important, but it should be up there. So don't downplay
Yeah, number two on there could be quality of life.
quality of life.
Nuisance complaints. I like. And then I don't know a way to say the lower, none of them are really not important, but I don't know what you would say for the bottom.
So another issue of prioritization.
Impact on the community. I mean, you got somebody that's pooping in the street or whatever, I mean, that's,
Public health and safety.
yeah.
nuisance.
So public health and safety, you would say has a high impact on that. But we're gonna put an H here. High impact on these. Now, what about quality of life?
That's high impact.
I think when you say quality of life, in terms of our code, that's a section that our code calls nuisances.
But I just wanted to stress that even though it's a nuisance, because there's a lot of things that are nuisance. It comes down to this, but don't downplay. I don't want to downplay it on that. It's the reason why I put it, but it is slash.
Well,
nuisance.
one of the things you can also think about is even though you're prioritizing this way, you have this.
They
That
overlap.
sometimes they can overlap. Sometimes this could be a really important issue. If somebody's like at the edge, well, we need to take care of this before this. Because then it becomes a public health and safety issue. So you can't put it in a box. Is
What about evidence-based? Like, if you can gather lots of evidence or no evidence for the sound nuisances.
For all of these, you were potentially going to be taking enforcement action or abatement action at some point. You can't do that without evidence.
Mhm.
So if there's no evidence, you can't do anything with the complaint.
Okay.
there's another area on this too, is how many people is this particular problem affecting? Like, for instance, if say there's somebody who's parked a trailer or something broken down thing, like I've seen at McKay's. And everybody that comes in there is putting it on the Facebook, everybody's unhappy with it, everybody wants that. So that's affecting a whole bunch of people, including the business. You get somebody that, their neighbor puts the trash can in their driveway so they can't get out to go to work in the morning. That's affecting one person. So if it's something that's affecting a number of people, it seems like it would be a higher prioritize than, you know.
So maybe impact on this community.
Yeah.
So we got a subsection here of, I'm gonna call this
You could do 3 eyes.
Roman numeral 1. Roman numeral 2 is getting into a different issue, and you were stating it as how?
Impact on the community.
How many people are impacted? Is the community as a whole impacted, or is one person impacted, or a one family, you know, it's how many people are impacted by this? Does that make sense?
Well, it does, but I kind of worry about that because like at the end of the street, like yours, unless it's the neighbors right there, it impacts, so it does 3 families. So I hate to see us put that up there because if it impacts one person, it should be still our concern.
Yes,
Because I don't drive up that street, and I have a couple of times to first look at it. Or I don't hear the dogs barking, or the tall grass up on some street there. It doesn't affect me, but it affects the people right there. So that comes down to the quality of life and the values of the property. So I understand what you're saying. If someone's peeing out on the sidewalk, then everybody that drives by it affects. But if I don't drive by it, I'm not a number to count. That's all. I hate to see how many people are impacted. If it impacts one of our citizens, I feel that we need to address it.
I feel we need to address it too. I was just thinking as whether that was going to be higher on the list. The thing that's impacting most people's health and safety would be higher on the list to look at than somebody that's just us. Yeah.
Cassie would like to speak.
Thank you. I agree. Impact on the community, to me, it should be on there for sure. Because yes, nobody's saying that it isn't important if it only impacts one person. Nobody's dismissing it. And I think that they all need to be addressed for sure. But we're talking about prioritizing and the impact on a bigger chunk of the community, I think needs to be placed in a higher priority than impact on one or a few individuals. Again, not to say that those aren't important, and definitely we want to address those because I may not hear the barking dog, but I absolutely understand how miserable that can make someone's life. And so I think that is very important that we should address them all. But if we're talking about prioritizing, then impact on the larger community needs to come before impact on 1 or 2 people, unless we're going to be spread pretty thin if we start addressing every little thing immediately. I think we're just talking about, if I understand Nikki, what we're talking about is putting together kind of a format for us to all follow. And this begins our discussion on that. As we meet every month, we'll delve into doing more things. But I agree with Shania. I think that we should do impact on community should be on that list for sure for us all.
Agreed.
Do we want to assign a level of priority? High, low, medium? And when you look at it, you look at everything total, you can't prioritize something cool. You can't say this, and this, and this, put up numbers, and then say go. This is human nature stuff. This is,
No, everybody's important, but if you got some guy, say, some guy's sewage is running into your yard, that's a priority. That's public health and safety. If you've got 10 or 20 people complaining about Mr. So-and-so and his loud noise at night and stuff like that, we got to take that into account. It doesn't make everybody's important, but if you got 10, 15, 20 people complaining about the same thing, it's hard. It's a hard line to follow, whether or not somebody's sewage running into your yard is
So-
affecting one person and you got 20 people also complaining about something else. Everything's important, but you know, where do we get to that point where we decide, you know, what we do first or how we, you know, this is gonna be a tough one.
Do we want to assign a value of high, low, or medium on this priority, or just leave it be? Okay.
All right. Move on to, are we done prioritizing the complaint evaluation process, or is there more to add?
Okay, so
Well, a complaint comes in and then what, we all look at the complaint and we have, say, 5 of them and we assign them different priorities according on how important to the whole safety and that we just talked about? Is that what you're saying? So we get, okay, that seems reasonable to
it's
me.
up to you guys.
Yeah, I don't know about the pronoun we there. I think it would be best if we had some kind of process to guide staff. So that if, as complaints come in, the staff that are dealing with those can prioritize them. And you know, we might review how they're doing that at some point. And the only reason you would ever prioritize complaints is if you don't have the resources to deal with all of them immediately.
Yeah.
Which is the reality. So-
Exactly, yeah.
So we are forced to pick and choose.
And that just comes back to public health and safety. It's-
It's either one, but some of, you know, as Mark was saying, sometimes these things overlap. I think you might put street and right of way violations way down at the list, but some of those impact safety.
So I want to understand, so if we have 5 complaints coming in, and one is a real severe one, and if of those 5, cases will be opened up on all of them, letters will go out on all of them. Some may self-comply, but the ones that don't, that's when we prioritize them to see how far you go forward, because we know there are some that are going to go to the very end.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
I think so too.
So, I mean,
It doesn't take a lot of resource to send people letters.
absolutely, all, you know, and then to follow the steps. And I thought that's what, you know, we were gonna do is, so tomorrow, or whenever you start your program, once you decide it is complaint based and you're gonna start the forms, they come in, then all of them should be opened up as a case. All of them, then, I know it is time consuming because we haven't done it for so long. But then cars may be towed away, rats may be moved. But then we're gonna come down to the hardcore basis of the ones we know about. From there, you have to decide how you're gonna spend your resource and how you're gonna go. But I would hate to think that we're only gonna do one or pick and choose and stuff.
No, I agree with you. I think every complaint should have a case number and be on file.
And start it. And then, like I said, then we prioritize the resources and which ones, and work with the people. Maybe they'll solve it. If they don't, we know there's some that are gonna go before the distance. Yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah,
That's.
that way we can show some progress.
Yeah. Really the process
So-
is what we have to address tonight.
Over there is talking about prioritization. Now we're covering the steps of how we're gonna do this. I'm assuming. So step one is it file complaint?
That's the citizens filing complaint, not us.
Right.
So I would.
Can we see the form? Everybody familiar with the form?
Oh, do you mean the complaint form?
Yes.
What about the ones that have already been turned in that are,
No, this is the new one, just to make sure that this is the form you want them to use. That's what I would.
gotcha.
I'm gonna say assign number. To what guys do with the filed complaint
I think,
or assign case number.
yeah, I think, the complaint form as it is at this moment, I personally feel it's fine. We can tackle that at a later date. I think the first most important thing is for us to start getting the process that we're gonna do to just keep accountability and stuff. Cause I
Show some progress.
we can always, I mean, this is old, we can address it at a later time, but it's working for now.
Well, yeah, and see, I just want to make sure everybody knew, because we're talking about evidence, is it attached, yes or no? So I mean, they can still file it even if they don't have evidence to attach.
So Excel is a great program.
Yes.
All complaints should be on Excel. Spreadsheet.
I know, but what do you mean, they don't file electronic, they come in and then it's put to your Excel?
Yeah,
So we
that's
never lose it.
one thing I would like to see at our committee meetings is a staff report. Not, it doesn't have to be super crazy, but on what they've done for each of the open complaints.
The progress report.
Yeah,
Where they are on each case, either.
Has a letter been filed? Have they been contacted personally? That kind of thing?
yeah, so we can put that on there.
So I've got so far, file complaints, assign them.
Yes, and so for any old complaints or active complaints, I should say, there should be a staff report, right?
Is that what you want?
Or do you mean by?
Well,
Ones
I'm
that are already
saying
been
once
heard.
they're open, so in 6 months, we're gonna be having active complaints that they're following through on.
Yes.
A staff report on
So
those.
they don't get lost or quit being followed up on.
Yes,
So they come to the point now we have to decide, are we going to prioritize it and spend the money is what? So they're not lost.
that's what I was.
No fault, yeah, as they said, fall through the cracks.
Yes, ultimately, right.
What do you guys want me to do down?
Review staff report, possibly.
For the process of a complaint or just the whole
I don't,
process?
just our process, because I don't think we need to go into the process
Okay.
and file a complaint.
Review
Review staff. report.
spreadsheet.
Mhm. Use spreadsheet /staff report, just so it's clear.
Yeah,
Makes
that way we'll know where we're at.
Excuse me, Nikki, I have a question. Nikki, I have a question for you real quickly. Where would that report come from? Which staff member are you thinking?
Probably the city clerk or the city manager.
Okay,
Yeah, city clerk.
I would work with the manager.
okay, thank you.
One of the two of you.
Yes, yes. And so if I may, I will speak with Rick. I will see what current complaints are at hand because I know I just mailed one on Friday. I'll make sure there's a log. And if there isn't, and I'm sure there is, and I will document that and I will create a report to the council and this committee.
Perfect. Yeah. I think this kind of helps, if I may, this kind of helps you too. know
Absolutely.
What to expect, yeah.
Yeah, that way someone doesn't come in and go, hey, what's going on? And you're like,
I have no idea.
So how many are you actively, are current active? One?
I started Tuesday last week and I've seen one thus far, but I know there probably are more and I will talk with Rick about it.
Like I said, are we going to go forward with the open one? Not, I understand that we have a backlog. I understand that. But I mean, we're not gonna go back through all of those and start them. Are we going to educate the people and let them know this new committee, this new thing, and let them come in and start doing it, except the ones that you are currently working on?
I think we need to kind of review at least recent history of the ones that have been filed.
There are some folks around town who have received notice and have done nothing.
Mhm.
And some of those are significant problems, like the one we heard a comment on today.
Mhm.
And those are cases where somebody should be moving forward on them.
Yes,
They know.
yeah. So maybe we can talk to Rick and you, and we can see what the kind of the current situation is. So we
Yes.
know where to go forward.
yeah, we can't just dismiss something. We have at least a review and see what's
Yeah.
going on.
But that would
I
be
agree.
current ones they're working on.
Yeah.
Current ones that letters have gone off and then stopped.
Yes,
But are you talking about going and grabbing all the ones that have been filed in the last 3 years. Okay, so I just want to make sure, we're not going to go back. We're going to go to the current ones where letters and then they just stop and nothing has happened.
I mean, I personally think like a recent history, at least, Rick's been here, what, 6 months, so we can at least, Rick knows what he's done.
Right.
So we can at least.
Those 6 months
6
or so.
months.
So one of the ways you can look at your definition of current is complaint was open and not resolved.
That would be an open case.
Yeah,
Right. So you can consider that current.
so if we can get that from the city manager, city clerk by the next meeting or so, then we would have a good kind of basis on where to start.
So review open non-compliant.
Right.
Complaint.
Where am I putting that?
Kind of like a special one for the next meeting. Just,
No. No, that would be a lot, it might be a lot of work. So you know how we're talking of staff time, but this is what Rob was saying is when a new complaint comes in, with this new spreadsheet, obviously you have to have a date moving forward. And if you do all the open ones where letters have gone out, but nothing has happened, would a step be to check for past, not going through the drawer of all the ones, nothing's ever happened, but I mean, of those, like with having a spreadsheet, then could you then check for past complaints on this issue? Is that what you were talking about doing that step for the fine?
Not really, because the fines escalate with previous violations, right? And for it to be a previous violation, someone has to have gone through the whole process already.
But with the new spreadsheet, you would be able to track each one, and then if a new one came in, you could go back and check your spreadsheet if if they have had a previous.
going forward.
That would
Yeah.
raise its priority.
It probably would have had to pass the hearings office.
Yes,
We considered a second.
Yes.
complaint.
Yeah.
but I mean, you want to, you're talking about checking for past this day forward with the spreadsheet.
Yeah, I mean, what our new ordinance has the priors part in it, so yeah, going forward, that would help keep it all in a nice format, because I know right now it's like, I don't know what's in the file, so it'll keep, yeah.
So the step would be then to do your spreadsheet and check and see if they have had a prior.
Kind of like a rap sheet.
Yeah.
You know, somebody's a consistent violator.
Remember at this point, as far as our code is set up, you can't call it prior unless hearings officer has actually heard it.
No, we're saying,
Since being
In
there.
the future.
Okay,
You're doing
yeah.
a step.
Gotcha, okay.
So
yeah.
it's a step that once they get the complaint, then they would enter it in and then they would take a second and check, see if they had had a completed prior one. Step.
That was not acted on?
Yeah, no,
It has to have been acted on.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
it then has gone to the end.
To the enforcement?
Yeah.
Okay,
Non-compliant.
but not settled. In other words, they didn't.
How about that?
I would say for better language, check for prior non-compliance, or because check for prior complaints could be, yeah.
Are we gonna be doing things? Similar to, I mean, I don't know how to explain this. Like, we got the ATV, UTV law passed, and there's a specific route. But I see people going past the railroad tracks and going other places. Is there something for the code enforcement to be doing things like maybe putting up a sign or something by the railroad tracks? No, you know, ATVs, no, the route goes this way, there, no ATVs past here. I ride all the time. I love it. But I know that there's some people down the street that say, hey, we don't want that down, you know, that's not where they're supposed to be riding. Or just maybe there's a stop sign that's missing, like ours got ran over by an RV the other day. That was exciting. But are we gonna be taking care of things like that? Just, is that part of code enforcement so it's our responsibility to make sure that the boundaries and the laws are obeyed. But if somebody from out of town has no idea that there's a specific route and they're going to Dollar General, is that something code enforcement would be able to put up like a sign or, yeah, go ahead.
The ATV route, the signage, education on that is, something Shirley's been pushing for the past year, I know, better signage. That's a council issue as
Okay.
far as the signage goes.
Okay,
Enforcing it, that's a tough one because we are not out on our cars pulling people over as they're actively doing it. You know, it's more of a sheriff's department thing.
right. But I know that she's been working on that really hard, and that was something that, I've noticed myself that if I'm from out of town and I've got my quad or my four-seater or whatever, and I just go to Dollar General, they don't know. Nobody knows.
Yeah, I just talked to Shirley about that earlier today, something. It's up to Rob.
Sure.
And it's been approved by council repeatedly to be on the website for 1,000 route maps to be printed for signage at the kiosk. I actually have a list and the meeting minutes from at least 12 meetings, different councils over the last 4 years. Sign examples, the county printed all the signage, the majority. There's supposed to be sign at the kiosk at the ATV staging area, which is the airport parking lot. And I will be coming back to council to beg again.
Yeah, it's more of a council issue.
Okay, all right, yeah, I just didn't know.
The transient tax has been dedicated and already budgeted for in 2 past years' budgets for the signage to happen.
Nice.
Thank you.
So maybe we go to step 3 on the process.
I think step 3 should be.
I don't know, I was just saying, next step,
So if I understand the thought process here, are you trying to outline a process for staff to follow when complaints come in?
I'm more trying to outline a process for, or I thought what we were doing was outline a process for when we come to our meetings. Not only staff knows what we're doing each meeting, but more for us to have a formal
Process.
a worksheet.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a worksheet on what we're doing every meeting.
So a worksheet for reviewing complaint enforcement and process.
Yeah. I just thought it might help staff know as well that what we're trying to do every meeting. Have a, like the spreadsheet, I think like Elaine was saying is a great thing going forward. Now we're gonna have some sort of track record in one document of what's going on, so.
And we're gonna try to do like the council meeting and put something out ahead of time for people to look at and think about and perhaps research before we actually have our meeting. How often are we going to meet?
Well, we have to discuss that too,
Okay.
including when our next meeting's.
Then I'm wondering if we're considering doing that, because I know when I was running for council, I thought that was a pretty good idea. If you had something come up and you didn't have any idea about this, you had some time to maybe do your own research, ask people who were aware of the situation, so that when you came in, you'd be informed about the thing that you were going to talk about. So are we considering that as part of the process, perhaps?
Well, I know, for public meeting laws, we have to put the agenda out. I don't know how it works for the legality issues of putting out complaints to the public in a packet. Like council meeting.
Yeah, no.
Are you saying like put the staff report in the public agenda? Or,
Good question. I don't know. Remember, I'm coming kind of new to this myself, but I'm just thinking, will we come in and sit down like we did tonight and go, okay, we have these things to look at, and then we look at them and say, Mrs. Johnson's cow has gotten into the meadow again, and this fifth time, or will we get perhaps something in advance so that we can go and find out that Mrs. Johnson can't afford her fence? You know, that's just you see what I mean?
I was thinking that, like it says, the ordinance that was just passed, it says the steps that we're doing here, but these are a couple things, procedural that isn't in our ordinance. So, but when I was kind of thinking that it would be an update on, there's been 10 cases, and this is where we are on each one. This one
Right.
is on step 5, this one is on
Yeah.
step 3. This one, so we know where they're at to make sure they haven't been lost. I don't know if it's our job to go and look at them at this point.
That's gonna be the enforcement person, huh? Okay.
Yes, but we definitely want to know how we're proceeding, so we can evaluate to see if anything is being accomplished, whether it's, 10 were filed, 3 self-abated, 4's on the next step, 2 has gone to a hearing, and we have 2 that we're gonna have to take the final step. And I don't know what that is about going to court or what we're gonna do, because there is, I don't know the final step. So until we get one and start it, will they be able to figure this?
Okay, thank you.
That's what I'm thinking.
just so we know too, we are not supposed to go personally
Right,
go investigate these.
right, yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's really, yeah, and like Nikki says, it's real important that you can drive by, absolutely, I will, out of curiosity, I'm sure, but you must not go on the property and you must not contact.
Sure,
us.
no one's a junior G man.
Yeah.
Because when we get complaints, like cars went by.
Same car.
Maybe the next step or a step later is to get something together to direct council, to direct staff. Do we have to tell council to direct staff to do? We can just go straight to staff. Okay, so then,
I think that's what I wrote. Rob, in the resolution, that word, no, I did use the word work with staff, so
okay,
you do have that one.
so then we can go from there, work with staff on next steps.
You can't order. More.
Yeah, yeah.
The actual wording is collaborating with municipal staff and council to devise a strategy for augmenting and improving code compliance throughout the city.
So not demand.
So that
Yeah,
opens
yeah.
up the door.
Yeah, so, okay, so then we can put,
And this is worded in a way so that it's not about specific complaints or violations.
Mhm.
It's about the strategy for dealing with all of them.
yeah, okay. And whatever said, directions are, me and him will report back to council with that, to update them on, okay.
So you guys decide on what type of report you want to give council. Yeah, who gives it?
Okay.
That's committee's decision.
Yeah.
Question.
If I may. So this gentleman here, so I can explain. He's next to the Rainbow property.
Mm.
And actually, they filed a petition, a full petition, and gave it to the city. And essentially,
I
You-
haven't.
you
I
know,
was the one, I walked the
Oh.
neighborhood and
Oh,
my
good,
name's
good.
Kim King. I was here at the committee a year ago in June and I spoke in front of the committee. I tried to find it. It's in the minutes. Okay, anyway, and this is a copy of it, but apparently all the signatures and everything are not found or lost or something. And then I just,
Find out.
yeah, you can have
Okay.
that. It's just a copy of it. I took that around and I collected 65 signatures in the neighborhood.
Okay, because we want to put it in the minutes. So
Sure, it can go
I
in
can make
minutes
a
again.
photocopy.
No, I don't need
Okay.
it. I just, it's a bummer that those original just never got addressed. Nobody ever
Thank
spoke
you.
to me about it ever again.
Right.
I never even got talked to.
Can we have some background on this?
I didn't mean to interrupt.
We'll send it out for you.
I didn't mind.
Okay.
I thought we'd get to that.
Okay, so you got your own job now.
One
He
moment,
needs to go to the mic.
I do have, she was asking for a little background on this, so I was gonna,
Dennis
Kind of.
was too.
okay, so, the Rainbow property is the house that burned down, that has not been cleaned up. It's really bad, and that happened about 2 years ago.
Nowhere.
I just know it's on Rainbow, I don't know.
It happened September 1st of 2022, so we're going on almost 2 years ago.
And she was here at a council meeting about a year ago, and I asked Melissa about it, and I'm
Yeah.
sorry that no one ever got in touch with you. Rick did, say that there's an inquiry on someone purchasing the property, and it was still, theoretical about something being done between, the city, so I'm not too sure, but yeah.
So,
It's
yeah,
just
so
a
the
big-
latest on the property was DEQ did pay them. The property, but DEQ was really slow. And, you know, we do have a letter from DEQ saying that these are the violations, letter that was sent to them. Like Nikki was saying, there's been a couple attempts by the owner and by an investor to get that lien off the property. But none of them at this point have said, oh, we're gonna clean it up. Is that basically what you said? I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
Investor,
No, well, kind, not really.
yeah.
You're good. Yeah, thank you.
You know it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Greg Cooper. I live on Rainbow Lane. Jacobson also, I'm on the corner. I live across the street from the abandoned property, that's burnt down. And 2 years now, been addressed to the city before, they've ignored it, didn't even respond to the petition for 65 signatures earlier. I've addressed this again recently with Rick just last week before he left. He's supposed to get back to me on it before he left, about my previous complaints. I spoke with the mayor this morning. I've spoken all the way up through the state. Fire marshals, county marshals, city, everybody at the state. I finally got a fire marshal, state fire marshal that says our fire chief is not doing his job. I spoke to him this afternoon about it. He said he would have to speak to his superior. He is allowed to write citations for code violations. He says he is not. What does the fire chief do? Prevention, education, take care of fires. We're just pretty fed up with the problem. Needs to be addressed, issued promptly, 2 years now. I've got letters going out to congressmen and senators, with everybody on the list that I spoke to, every office. So just for a heads up, this thing will be on the list. If there is an incident, and it takes out another house next to it or adjoining properties, everyone's been on notice and didn't do a damn thing about it.
Sir,
The hammer will fall.
a letter did go out to the offending owner of the property. I'm understanding we sent it certified on Friday. Rick had written it. I got it sent.
Well, thank you.
Yes, so,
So more progress.
and I sent you a copy. You just have it.
For that, yeah.
You have it.
Somebody concerned.
Yes, but I did send you the carbon. I
You
think
did,
it's
thank you.
probably in process. Yeah,
Very much.
yes. Thank you.
That's the beauty of the new thing, we're going, finding them, actually, not instead of just sending letters, that's all we've done in the past couple of years is send letters. Yeah, so, but I know that this property is a special scenario and, hopefully, yeah, I'm sorry about that,
That's up to the city
Sad.
yeah.
to enforce this with the fire chief, but I was told that he can't enforce the fire chief doing his job.
Well, actually, the city doesn't control fire.
No, they don't.
but they're in charge of the city. They can't get around that.
They put the fire out. I'm not mad at the fire department either, but I know, that I get
What exactly is the stumbling block? What has to happen? Is the person who owned the property refusing to clean it up? Is that what's happening?
Absolutely. It was not a secured property. It was an old mobile manufactured home,
Right.
like, from the eighties. And he inherited this property, like bought it for $1. And this city, some other iteration of city council and manager put a huge lien against the property for a nuisance code violation.
Before the fire or after the fire?
Before the fire, he had like $78,000 lien. And then his place burned to the ground. Cause he had the electric turned on. That's another weird thing is they just turned the electric on with no inspection and it burned within 20 minutes.
So what has to happen now?
So it's just been sitting there. It's a big pile of burnout. I don't know what can happen. You can't.
There's still flammable there. The weeds are over 3 feet high.
There's burnout gel.
We have fire restrictions now with our window, that's fire hazard.
Yeah.
It's fire light and going in there.
So,
And
in there.
so,
Came and dumping ground.
there's toxins in that property. Everything.
so with this lien on this property, how long with the lien not being paid is it before the city could do judicial foreclosure and take over the property?
Well, it's the county. I mean, the city manager, I guess, instigated it. But you can look it up on a county record. That's what I did. It just sits there.
Rick is in agreement.
In the meantime, the city could have someone go over and at least mow the weeds to keep the fire danger down. We're in the fire season now. That would help.
I don't know. It has to go through abatement, I guess, because it could be asbestos, all the things, just none of that was done. And he knows all this stuff properly. I've talked to him several times. He knows all.
Rick has something to say.
Rick says that there is indeed a $70,000 lien on it that was on prior to his arrival. It was put on by the city council, not the city manager. He says legal opinion says only the council can remove it.
And that's true. We had one time before where there was a lien put on the property and they wanted to refinance. And they can petition the court, they can petition the council to remove it. At that time, and this is something that's really important, is because of the costs involved, that it is a city asset. The money's owed, so they have to decide, do they want to negotiate it down or do they want to say no, it has to be paid in full? So there's more to it, but yes, only the council can vote to remove it, reduce it, negotiate it down.
I know one of the hopes was that someone would want to buy the property and clean it up and possibly they could petition council to, if we cleaned it up, they can get the lien removed, but it's never come to the council thus far.
And unfortunately, it comes to a point where if Vive's gonna buy it, I don't buy it, and then, because the lien has to be paid off to get a purchase, so the city would have to decide, are they going to release their lien prior to the purchase?
Yeah, so.
And that's when I hope the council then takes into account to be good stewards with the city's assets. And they have spent money to take care of them. So I hope they just don't waive it all, that they would only part of it or something like that, because we have to take a case and go all the way through. And there's several cases. Your street, Mike Armstrong's, and I think there's one more they're gonna go to the mat. You're gonna have to go all the way.
On page 16 of the code enforcement, at the very top, it says that after 1 year with the lien not being installed, the lien may be foreclosed upon. The property may be foreclosed upon. Is that something that?
Cassie has her hand up too.
Thank you. This is a prime example of public health and safety needs to be put at the very top. Being driven by that property, it's an abomination. It's a blight on our beautiful little town. And it is unsafe. There are probably rats in there. People are dumping other stuff there because it looks like we don't care, you know, and so I think when we have things like this, even though we need to do the other cases as well, like Elaine is saying, they're the low-hanging fruit. Let's get those handled and moved along. But stuff like this, we need to put at the very top because that's an unsafe situation, not to mention an eyesore.
I agree.
I agree, and there's, like I said, three properties that we have to proceed with. And they're gonna go the full distance. Because I mean, you've been trying 2 years. And we have to just start and go all the way. So and then hopefully, I would hope that one of our goals are, and for you to write down, is that when they first happen, we instantly are on it, so it doesn't become a dumping ground, so it doesn't get worse, the grass. Let's solve these problems, take them all the way we have to, and then let them know that it can't get worse. I know across from, up on the thing up there, it's become a dumping ground. Yours has become a dumping ground. And they just keep getting worse and worse, and then nothing gets
We've come
done.
from Lake County. We've lived here about, this will be our 4th year here. We love it here in Lakeside. We retired here for a reason. We love the coast, we can fish, everything. In Lake County, what they would have done is they would have cleaned up that property and attached a bill to it. And then he would have never been able to sell that property until the bill was paid. Seems like it's the complete opposite of that. It's like they put a big fine on or lien against it, but there's no incentive for him to do anything. It's just a big knot now that nobody can do anything.
Yes, you're right, because unless they foreclose on it, and then, like I said, then it becomes a liability to the city, and they're gonna want to get rid of it real fast.
Right, before all this, there was a bunch of squatters that lived there. The county was gonna foreclose on it, and went up to the very last minute of the very last hour of the very last day. And he went in there and paid just enough taxes to keep a hold of that property. And the process started all over again. So
Because the lien is only as good until you sell it. And if he says, I'm never gonna sell it, then
you
he's never-
can't, because it's a big burnout trash heap. How can you sell that property? You can't.
Well, I don't want you guys to lose focus
Yeah.
on the meeting itself.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of individuals, and thank you guys for,
We live right
I
across the
wanted-
street from it. for
I wanted to
years.
get your story shared, so. Okay,
It would be a good one to really make sure that we did something about them, if, you know.
Well, so the agenda item that we're actually on is tasks and follow-ups. And I'm hearing about this specific property, and then Elaine has said that there are several other properties.
I think there's 3, isn't there 3 of them?
So
Well, let's see.
I'm wondering if a task for somebody is to put together a short list of properties that need to be addressed on an expedited basis.
I did get, it was from Melissa, a big thumb drive of all the complaints and evidence that she had gathered at one point. So I haven't been in touch with Rick, but I wouldn't mind kind of compiling some of that stuff and the big problem properties.
That would be on the spreadsheet.
I was just saying,
Yeah.
anyways, I was just saying, but I wouldn't mind doing that. What Rob's asking.
Get the spreadsheet
So,
with the open complaints.
okay, now I'm kind of confused. So we were talking about a spreadsheet and we're talking about logging things in as complaints come in. And there's been talk about starting anew or going back 6 months, or I'm not sure what all you want on the spreadsheet, but if a distressed property has been in process for 2 years, might not show up going back 6 months.
Why not?
She just sent a letter out. And
Okay, but-
any open cases, she has sent letters out, or we have letters sent and they haven't, anything happened, right?
Okay, so, then you don't want to compile a list of properties that need some kind of expedited action. Instead, you want to go for the spreadsheet of open cases.
No.
One and the same.
We were saying that, my point bringing up the stuff that I have from Melissa, it's the chronic offenders. And that we can make a list of the chronic offenders and get that moving, because there's already been a letter sent out, so let's go to the next step with them,
And that puts it in a priority of public health and safety. That's our number one priority.
right?
Not sure if you're talking past each other or if you're saying the same thing or.
I think we're on the same page personally.
So you want to create a list of chronic offenders because we need to get moving on these right away? Question, or is that the statement?
I'd say yes. I mean, can
I
that not
don't-
be one of our priorities, is to take care of chronic offenders or extant cases that have been spinning their wheels for a time? I mean, we don't have to go back onto everything, but if it's something that's that serious, that's a definite health and safety, which is what we said was, important.
We were saying go back 6 months, so.
Go back to, like you said, 6 months, open letters. And then you're gonna have to decide if a letter was written by Melissa and it just stopped. No, it fell through the cracks. That would go on to the spreadsheet, but do we have to send another letter and start over? 6 months is a long time between the start. I mean, that's another question we have to address. Are you gonna, like, you just sent the letter out Friday? But I mean, one that we go back and a letter was sent and nothing ever followed through. Do we have to then send another letter and start forward again? That's, what do you think? I have no idea on that.
Well, what was the gist of the letter that was sent to this property?
I can go get it, but the gist of the letter was that a complaint has been received and you are, the ordinance, you are,
In violation of.
in violation of the ordinance, and here's what needs to happen
In a certain amount of days.
in a certain amount of days.
So that's what I'm saying, if you're going back and their letter was written 6 months ago and you gave them 14 days, do we have to send out a new letter?
It depends on whether or not the old letter is compliant with the current enforcement. So if it's not, then you need to send a new letter, which you just did. And then if that date passes and they haven't brought it into compliance, then she has a second letter to send out. And at some point, without correction, they can move to abatement that requires a subject.
Hold on.
So is anybody volunteering for the task of
Oh,
compiling
absolutely.
a list of
It
chronic
just doesn't,
offenders?
no follow through happens to do it.
Where would this list come from? From the files that are here or what?
Yeah,
Or
information from the city manager or city clerk.
I believe that there is information on the drive that I could compile, most recents. And I'll talk with Rick about it and put it into a spreadsheet and make a list with also a check sheet. But more than that, Cassie has her hand up again.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify, I'm a little confused, as I think Rob might be as well. Are we talking about two separate things? The spreadsheet report is what we get from staff every month. And then Nikki, you're suggesting another initial report of the chronic offenders. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, I mean, Rob said that we were on tasks and follow-up, so my thought was the first task is to get a list of what's going on. What's currently going on, what's currently open, what's been done. That's our first task,
Yes.
right?
Right, well, and on the spreadsheet, you could also have, you know, everything's listed, but, you know, some of them are in red. You know,
So-
these people's offenses in red, you know?
So is this the official spreadsheet? Or is this a separate list of stuff we have to move on right now?
I think it could be on one sheet, but ones like their complaint and several others, you know, some people use a highlighter, you know, they need to be, you know, on this spreadsheet. These are the ones that are
Prioritized.
health and safety, just like we put up on the board. You know, Mr. Jones's cow in the field isn't as much as a priority as these people's property value going down,
Well-
squatters dumping.
I guess my question was, I was asking whether for our next meeting, because we're gonna assign a task, we would expect this task to be done before the next meeting.
I don't,
So what are you talking about? We're talking about that? We're just talking about the general spreadsheet.
I mean, this spreadsheet, that spreadsheet, all I'm saying is that we get some sort of basis. Whether it's a fully official spreadsheet or going forward, I think that's, if she has time to get that all ready, right? I mean,
So are
us
we-
asking them to compile all that information in 30 days.
Sorry, I'm just kind of trying to narrow it down. Are we talking general? Are we talking about the specific few?
No, I think everything should be on one sheet, but there's some that are gonna be a higher priority than others, and those should be at the top of that sheet.
So general list of current violators? Okay. So I'm gonna just put down here, general list of current, and Sean, if you've got the time, think you're gonna have the time to do this?
I do. I will make the time. Yes,
You are on the list.
yes.
And it's past offenders are only the open ones that have never complied, and we lost them. It's like I said, a letter went out 6 months ago and nothing happened. It's not compiling a list of all complaints. We're only
No.
looking at the ones that have never
Current issues.
had issues, yes. Is that what everybody else understands?
I think so.
That's what I think of as confusing Robert, right? Mhm. So it's just the ones that we're gonna be working.
Without-
Good from here.
Cassie says current and habitual violators. I'm going to put as much info in there as I can gather for this committee, for sure.
Thank you.
Yes.
Because the habitual ones are almost the current ones. So, you know, the
Yes.
ones that are habitual and we go back and they're still current.
Right. Like the property across from Armstrong's, the Rainbow Lane, that's, you know,
So one thing about a meeting is we want to always cycle our discussion through the chairperson. Otherwise, we're starting dialogues and then everybody else is kind of like, oh God. So try to cycle it through the chairperson so we can kind of keep a little bit on task.
it's our first day.
I am the facilitator here, so, you know, I'm the
Thank you.
scolding nurse or whatever.
So far, we've come up with one task and we've given it to staff.
She volunteered. She said she could do it.
She has the information at hand.
Hopefully.
Our committees. That sparked something in any of us that said, hey, we should have something to work on for that objective, and I can do that.
Quickly, would you mind just one word listing the objectives for me again?
So we had educating citizens.
Okay.
We had, and we already agreed, this is low priority, surveying historical complaints. We had collaborating with staff and council on a strategy for improving code compliance. Supporting staff in pinpointing properties posing compliance issues. Overseeing the city's initiatives to enhance code compliance and proposing adjustments. And then there's providing monthly reports to the council.
I think that getting some of these complaints in order and aligned where we have materials to work with is gonna be, help us out a lot. I mean, we could spitball all day long, but we don't know what the complaints are. I've probably never been up Rainbow Lane. We just went a couple places ourselves and looked around.
It's kind of over behind us. We saw the fire when it happened.
But I think getting this first meeting, our priorities, getting a listing of what these code violations are, what these city complaints are, what our local community is complaining about, what's affecting their lives. I think once we can get a listing of all these documented where it's in front of us and we can see it's going to be really helpful. I think we make progress that way in trying to get a listing because, I never knew about them. She didn't know about them. And we have to know what we're up against before we can tackle these processes. I think that having a list and a priority process that we've come out with, I think that's going to help us move forward a lot.
Can I make a suggestion? I would really like to see everybody read the nuisance code. The actual one, not what we were doing about the hearing office or that type of thing. So you can understand how each of these complaints that come in, you can look at the code and say, hey, this is a violation for this. Did you guys know that RVs cannot be in a public right-of-way, period, anytime, only for loading and unloading? That's what you'll find when you read the news. There's also a process, so I know it's a little bit of homework.
You mean read the ordinances?
Yeah.
No,
Absolutely.
not the ordinances, the municipal code. It's all in one place. So, I will take a task. It's a tiny one for me, but huge for you. I will send every member of this committee, section 93. So you have a chance to look through it. Then we are nuisance code.
And I will read that completely, up and down, maybe more than once.
You will have to.
I think we should also bring one to every meeting, have it in front of us.
Yes. And there's a public hearing. When you're having a public hearing, or chapter 93, 65, and making changes to it.
Okay, so to put that in perspective, right now, there's more than one place that a citizen has the opportunity to violate and be fined. And they're not uniform. And so,
Would you say that again, please?
sure. So you could have a nuisance violation, and that's in the nuisance code, and there's a fine for that. And you could violate the zoning code. That's a whole separate section of code that has its own fining schedule. And you could violate the land division code. Similarly, it has its own fine schedule. So the hearing in question is to amend those sections of the code so that they all come under the same fining process and schedule. Instead of having different fines and different procedures in different places.
That's gonna be a fun thing to go through.
It's simple.
I think it would speed up the process also.
I just want to say that I think before anybody, other than you sending everybody this so that they're familiar with it, and then our homework should be to get a notebook and bring it with us every time so we can look at it. But I mean, I would hate to see someone say, well, I'll volunteer to do education. When this is kind of early to be starting education. Let's get, of course, get the list up. And I know Sean has volunteered to do it for us, but then next meeting when we come, we'll be able to see where everything is, and then we can understand the next process.
Will we have the list? We talked about making a list public or not public. I don't think that our priority list should be public, but will we have access to that list before the next meeting? So we can study it and go over it?
Depends on when our next meeting is and how soon staff gets that.
Would that even be allowed on the agenda, the list of? I mean, I guess
You don't have to
it's a
sign
public,
names.
it's a
You don't have
public
to sign
meeting.
names.
Rick is saying yes.
It's all public. Okay, so then, yeah, as soon as they kind of like our council packets, it would be something similar.
Yeah, it'd just be nice to have material, so when we come in, we're just not like.
Rick has his hand up.
Rick has his hand up.
Go, Rick.
The response to yes was that you could have the list by the next meeting. I don't know about well, I guess I'm just not sure about the public information, but no, there's no problem getting a list by your next meeting, provided you're not meeting tomorrow. But we can easily put the list together. I've got 3 months of it already together because I shared it at a non-council meeting in February. I think maybe the non-council meeting in March, when I created the complete list of the 60 some complaints that I had received during my first 3 months. So I'm thinking the non-council meeting in March, I handed out and distributed and shared the list of 60 some complaints that I had received to date. So there's no problem getting the list together as long as I have a week.
But quick question, Rick, as far as like how our packets go out, like the week before, could that information be available to study before the meeting? Is what we're wondering.
Yes. And also, Rick, could we just put the addresses or without the offending owner's name?
Or complaining.
I think my comfort level would be put the name of a street and not an address.
Okay. Great.
I mean, that's how I'm treating the barking dogs on Railroad. I've put the barking dogs on Railroad on every list I've created, but I've never shared the address or the name.
Okay.
Thank you.
That would be my preference. But I serve at the will of the council.
Right.
The other tasks the committee thinks should get done before it's completed.
Read that.
So I have general list of current complaints, working list, that's what we were just talking about. And read all of MC 93.
Yes.
Read and understand. That means you'll probably have to read it 2 or 3 times. Trust me, it's not plain English.
It's not that bad.
It's not, I've seen worse. It's land use code, but
And bring to the next meeting a copy, or maybe we can have a copy
Yeah.
supplied or something, just so it's there.
so Sean, do you want to take that task on
Yes.
of printing a copy for
intended to.
Thank you. Yes.
After the 27th, because they're going to be making changes in it, correct? At your council meeting.
It won't have.
They're not making changes to the actual
It's just the one section,
nuisance violations. It's about the finding.
right? But that's part of the
It
section.
it won't make any difference to everyone.
It's just attaching it to a different area of the code.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
What other tasks are there that nobody's taken?
Well, that's why I posed the question, are there any tasks that the committee members think needs to be done before the next meeting?
Well, I would take something on, but you know, like this is my first day here, so you know, if there's something that needs to be done and I have time to do it, I'll more than gladly volunteer help or what.
So maybe what those tasks are will become more apparent as we.
Correct.
Yeah.
Cassie has her hand up.
Thank you. I think that because this is so new, I agree that we aren't maybe quite sure what tasks we will have. We need to see this offending list. I think this process that we've just gone through is very important because we can figure out what it is, how we are going to attack this job. I have all kinds of time when I get back in town Friday. I will have all of July to do any tasks that are needed. I don't, luckily, I don't have to run a business like many of you do or work outside the home. So any tasks that we maybe figure out, I'm more than happy to do it. And I'm very proficient with the computer as well. So I'm willing to do anything, but I'm with you. I think that we need to have a little bit more information first. Thank you.
Did you say something about giving a report to the council on what happened here? Did you mention that, or was I
I didn't
mishearing you?
mention it as a task, but it's one of the objectives. So.
So somebody's gonna have to do that.
I can, I mean, are we talking like formal or just kind of like what we do when we talk about the different committees, right?
Well,
Like,
the first report to council doesn't have to be so many code violations were done, blah, 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 blah. It's more about, this is what we talked about. This is the direction we're moving.
okay,
This,
okay.
the first
yeah.
one's an easy one.
Yeah, okay, I just didn't know what was, yeah, that's.
The
I
next
could do
one
that,
will
yeah.
probably already have some data to provide.
Yeah.
I'd be
Sounds
willing
good.
to do that.
Yeah.
Report to council. I'd be willing to come to the council meeting and do that.
Well, it should be
One of us.
Yeah.
me or Nikki.
Oh, okay, then I wouldn't be willing.
Hopefully that when your reports will eventually start being, we've had 6 new ones filed, 4 taken care of the past. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
that's in
gonna be
progress.
what's really gonna be.
When you hear that taken care of, everybody in the council will probably stand up and bow down to you.
Then I'm gonna say we're done with that agenda item for this meeting. I want to quickly mention, the public meetings law. I think you all got one of these, right? So,
Can I get one of those? Can I get one of those?
It was in the packet.
so I just want to make a brief comment on that because this is a body that's subject to the Oregon Public Meetings Law. It means that, let's see, how many of us are there? There's 6, 7, okay. So a quorum is 4. Whenever a quorum of us is present somewhere, we can't talk about anything that has to do with the business of this committee or anything that might potentially come before it. That has to happen in a public meeting. And the other thing we can't do is we can't talk in smaller groups for the purpose of circumventing that limit. So I can't go talk to Elaine about something doing with the committee, and then she goes and talks to Nikki. And then Nikki goes and talks to you, and now 4 of us have shared this idea, but we haven't met together, we can't do that either. And that includes email. So if I send you out, so I'll be sending you all an email with section 93 of the municipal code. But I won't be making any recommendations about anything that has to do with this committee,
Because that has to happen in a forum.
because it has to happen in a public meeting.
And don't respond.
Don't hit reply all.
Yeah, don't start.
Reply all, exactly.
That's all I wanted to say about that.
Just scheduling it.
We have to decide when we're meeting next. And how often. Now, the first question, when we're meeting next, that one's more important. We can decide how often we meet as needed.
I would think that, our next meeting would be more productive when, she gets that list of stuff and we have something to work with.
Yeah, what's reasonable for you on what you're undertaking?
Well, within the next 2 weeks. Is that soon enough? Otherwise, I can probably get it done within the next week. Just depending upon the level of priority.
So if
I'm
you
still
were-
getting my sea legs.
The council meeting, that will probably take up a lot of your time. July 18th.
Well, the one after this, because we're not gonna meet before this. Oh.
That's planning commission here.
Yeah. The next
And
council meeting would be
you
the
were
18th.
handling the
third
planning
Thursday.
commission one. That's all in the bag, right?
So the 11th.
So about.
Yes.
Commission is in the bag.
Yes,
So we only have to worry about the staff reports or whatever for the council meeting.
yes.
So if that's
And then
in
you
3
pre-
weeks, then what
yeah,
about if
yeah.
we meet in 2?
I prefer to meet after the next council meeting. We're not, I mean, we could have 2 meetings that week, that's fine.
If we were to meet after the next council meeting, that would allow time both for staff to prepare the reporting and for the committee members to have some time to review it first.
That would give us a chance to study that MC 93 also.
Okay.
So we could, how about, July 15th, 3 weeks from today?
It's Monday, right?
Mhm.
We would be Monday
So,
at 16.
let's make sure we get the time right.
Yeah.
It's 6:30, really well worth it.
Yeah, I have to really fly here to get here by 6.
So 6:30, okay with everyone else?
Sure.
So, okay, thank you guys.
Works for me. I'm probably the most flexible one of us. I got a job.
So then amend that, the next meeting will be Monday, July 15th at 2:30 p.m.
Thank you.
And that's our last item of business, and so our meeting is adjourned at 8:01.
You have to make a motion.
No?
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
It's getting stuff to recording.
Good job. Oh, I